in live to the 16th edition of Texas Longhorns here, live on MarkRogersTV, the Texas channel. I am your host, Matthew Miller. You can find me right there on X. I'm here every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time to talk a little bit of Texas football. We will be adding a show in season as well, breaking down Steve Sarkisian's press conference. If anything else breaks, I'll be here as well. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe and share it out. We are on that journey to 3,000 subscribers. It really helps us out, guys. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Share this out with friends, families, neighbors, football fans in general. I don't care if you're a Texas fan. If you're a football fan, you belong here on the Voice of College Football and at the Texas channel. So please hit that like button and please subscribe. Also, go over to the SEC channel. We're very close to 1,000 subs over there. Go over there, like the content, subscribe. A lot of different teams in the SEC, especially new teams joining in Texas and Oklahoma. We have content up there about those teams as well as every other SEC team. And also tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern time, USC. Fantastic job. They do a fantastic show with Matt, Tim, and Mark. Please go over there and subscribe as well. It really helps out what they're trying to build there. They do a fantastic job. And guys, if this gets more subscribers and this gets traction, I can have call-in shows and stuff like that. Right now, we don't have the audience for that. I'd be sitting here taking calls from nobody. So please hit that like button, subscribe, share it out. I don't know what's happened the last 3 weeks. I'm not getting as many people to come in here. Don't know why. Don't know what happened. Don't know if people just started to hate me. But please share it out, subscribe. Really helps out what we're trying to do here. Again, this is the 16th edition. And before we get started on all that great stuff of camp news, recruiting, most important games in the SEC, the coaches poll also came out. But before we get into that, go over to Amazon using the link in the description. Puts a little bit of change into Mark's pocket. Does not change your buying experience at all. Helps out with Mark's trying to build here. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. We're going to get into recruiting updates first because this is a big week for Texas. We have, let's see, I think 3 guys this week. I know Khalid Lockett, DJ Sanders. I'm bad at dates off the fly. Nathan Tillman is August 10th. So, yes, that is this week. That is 5 days away. What is that, Friday or Saturday? So, big week. I think Texas has a good shot at 2. The third one I'm not so sure about, but let's get into it. High 4-star, low 5-star, wherever you go, that's what he's going to be ranked. Khalid Lockett announces on the 7th. I will be here. Well, I will say this. I will have a video ready to go. Please check it out. This is a big recruitment for Texas. We have zero, I repeat, wide receivers committed at the University of Texas for next year's class currently, which is crazy to say. I don't know why that is. Well, I do kind of know what that is. Texas went all in on DeCorian Moore, and then once he left, Kelshawn Johnson really didn't feel the love until the end, and then he ended up at A&M. I think we're going to try to flip him, though. Dallas Wilson, who is at Oregon, committed with DeCorian Moore. I think Texas is going to try to flip him. But right now, Khalid Lockett is definitely the forefront of this conversation. And Steve Sarkisian and Chris Jackson, the wide receiver coach, have been in constant communication with him, his family, and his camp. I think this does end up Texas's way. I said a couple months ago when it was Moore, French, and Lockett, to get all 3, I think it was like a 20% chance. To get 2 out of 3, I think it was a 50% chance. To get 1 at 75%. I think the 75% criteria will be fulfilled on August 7th. I do believe Khalid Lockett will be part of this Texas team going into next year and this recruiting class. 6'1", 6'2" now, I think. Long, rangy, athletic guy. He's not as athletic as DeCorian Moore, but I love the way he gets the ball in the air. I also love the way when he gets the ball, when he's not in the air, on the ground, how he makes moves and gets to the end zone. I really like this guy in this offense. Not as explosive, not as athletic as DeCorian Moore, but in my opinion, I said this a while ago too. I know people are going to say it's just because you didn't get DeCorian Moore. I think he's the best wide receiver out of the 3. I do. And that is not a popular opinion. Wherever you go, it's DeCorian Moore, and I understand that. But from what I've seen, the people that I've seen talk about him, I think he's the best, personally. I could be wrong on that. The others in contention here are A&M, Alabama, LSU, and Florida State. I threw in LSU there. I don't really think they're in contention. I think for Texas, it's going to be either Florida State or A&M. If he wants to stay home, it'll be A&M or Texas. If he wants to get a little bit farther, it'll be Florida State. I think it's close, but I think Texas is leading here. And like I said, he could be the first wide receiver commit for Texas. I think if he does commit, that pushes Texas into that 10 range in recruiting. I think by the end of August, guys, Texas will be probably between 8 and 11 in the recruiting rankings. And that's a good start going into the season. I fully expect this to be a top 7 class when all is said and done. I don't know about top 5. It's going to be very close, though. and it's going to be very interesting if we can get there. Terry to Nebraska, according to an OTF subscriber, your take. Great question, Ronnie. I think it matters. So I'm going to compare this to another recruitment, Jamie French. We heard for the longest time he was not interested in Miami, didn't we? Then he goes and visits Coral Gables and the beautiful facilities have right on the water. You have a lot of money there as well. Obviously they're not Nebraska right on the water in a nice state like that, but they have money, fantastic fan base, fantastic donors. Matt Rule finally has some traction, in my opinion, in recruiting. Would not shock me. I was here saying that a couple of months ago. Would not shock me. You cannot count out teams like Nebraska, Miami, and A&M. They have a lot of money. They have rabid fan bases, and they're willing to throw it around, especially for someone like a five-star like Michael Terry. That is rare air for Nebraska these days in recruiting. So it would be great for them if they could get Michael Terry. On top of that, Texas is pitching tight end. We already have Nick Townsend. We have Emery Winston. It's going to be interesting. I do think if Michael Terry ended up at Texas, Emery Winston will not be at Texas. And also where he plays is very important because they are pitching wide receiver, Ronnie. So if he wants to be a wide receiver, he definitely wants to play on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think defense is an option for him anymore. Then he will go there. If he wants to be a running back, which Oregon is pitching, which is very odd to me with the size and who they have in the running back class, he will go to Oregon. If he wants to play tight end, he will end up at Texas or Texas A&M. I think we'll end up at Texas if that is the case. It is going to be very interesting. Nebraska would not shock me. Big NIL teams do not shock me. And right now, teams like a Miami, Texas A&M, and Nebraska kind of have to lean on their NIL because they really haven't done much lately on the football field. And people are going to say, well, Texas hasn't either. Well, Texas at least has last year to stand on a little bit, plus NIL. Nebraska has literally nothing. A&M literally has nothing. And Miami, Florida doesn't have anything. So would it shock me? No. I honestly think it's a coin flip between Texas and Nebraska. Those are the two I would assume he goes to. I know Oregon's in the mix, but I think it'll end up Texas or Nebraska. Fantastic question, Ronnie. Keep them coming. Next up, we are going to talk about DJ Sanders, another big guy. Obviously, Josiah Sharma flipping to Texas helps out. But again, if a guy is willing to commit to Oregon, by the way, when he went to bed, he was going to go to Texas. He woke up, chose Oregon, and then a month later comes back to Texas. It's hard to tell if he's going to stick. So DJ Sanders is still a very important piece. Even with Josiah Sharma, if he's 100% in, it's still an important piece. 6'4", 315 pounds, upper 3-star, lower 4-star, big developmental upside. And you'll see that with a lot of guys on defense, Caleb Chester, Josiah Sharma, DJ Sanders. Long, lengthy athletes that have the ability to put on weight. When we get to camp updates, I'll explain to you what Steve Sarkisian is trying to do on the defensive side of the ball. And I think he fits perfectly into that scheme of basically, I want my 11 best players out there because they can fundamentally interchange positions. And I think he can do that. I think he can play multiple positions on the defensive line. So I think this is a big recruitment. August 8th, so in 3 days, it's going to be Texas, Michigan, or Texas A&M. I think it's hard to tell. This guy is so quiet, guys. He does not talk. He does not give interviews. Honestly, his camp is handling all of this. He's not even really doing most of this. He has family in Detroit. I think there's a chance he commits to Michigan, but Texas could still flip him. But I will say this. I think this guy honestly isn't a flip candidate if he does go somewhere else. This kind of reminds me of an Arch Manning situation where very business, they're going like a very business-like approach to this. And when he commits somewhere, he's solid there. That's the way I kind of see this with DJ Sanders. So I'm hoping it is Texas. I think Texas and Michigan, if I had to put percentage, I don't think A&M's really that much in it. Honestly, I think they're a clear number 3 here. I think Texas leads 55 to 60% to 45, 40% for Michigan. I think it's really close. I don't know where he's going to go. Those are going to be the 2 spots, in my opinion. I think the family in Detroit obviously helps that situation a lot. It's going to be interesting. So those are the 2 I feel most confident about, honestly, for Texas. This next one really sucks, guys. And I said the longer this one plays out, the more it benefits Utah and TCU, and that is Nathan Tillman, the safety from Texas, 3-star recruit. Some sites have him at 4-star, but very little 3-star. But he's good. I really wanted him. He's like I said, long, lengthy, athletic guy. Very fast, runs a 10.65, 10.7 100 meters at 185 pounds and 6'1". So really good athlete. Texas has lost communication in the last 2 weeks. That's never good. And he's gained communication with Utah and TCU, so I fully expect him to go to Utah or TCU. I think it's going to be Utah. I don't remember the last time Texas lost a big time, like a semi-big time recruit to TCU. I think it ends up being Utah. I think he likes Utah better. His family does want him to stay in the state of Texas, but I think you saw that with SMU. I think he committed to SMU to kind of please the family to stay close to Texas. Then once he decommitted, everyone thought he was going to go to Texas because he was just at a camp or a Texas camp, and he didn't. And I said every week that passes, that favors Utah. It's been like 2 months. I think he's going to end up at Utah. Texas said he'll honor his commitment if he does decide to go to Texas, but I think he ends up at Utah. And Utah's getting a good player. I'm not a hater, guys. When I see a good player, I say it. And when he goes somewhere else, he's still a good player to me. Nathan Tillman's a good player. If they develop him with Morgan Scalley as the coach in waiting, their longtime defensive coordinator, he'll end up being a really good player. So I like him a lot. August 10th is his decision. I think it's like 80% Utah, 20% Texas. But 2 out of 3 isn't bad here, and we'll get into the guys that commit later. Jamie French. I wanted to talk about this one because I told people, I've been telling people for 2 months, listen, guys, I like the big sites. I do. But what I think you get with someone like me who has an outsider's perspective, because I'm not as connected as these guys are. These guys have straight up intel off the coaching staff. I do not have that. I have to read the tea leaves and what the coaching staff says to a certain point, and I do have some connections, very little. They have said for the longest time it's Texas. He doesn't want to stay in state, da-da-da-da-da. Miami has a shit ton of money, right? Well, guess what Jamie French said, I don't know, 2.5 months ago when On3 held their recruitment event? I like Lamborghinis. I like a Lambo dealership. Does Texas have that? Absolutely they do. But that just screams NIL money to me. That doesn't scream football. That was the first thing he said out of his mouth, guys, when asked was, that I want a Lamborghini NIL dealership. I'm pretty sure they have Lamborghini dealerships in Miami. I'm positive they do. I bet if you looked it up, they have one. So when saying that, to me, that screams straight off the bat, NIL, that's the first thing on the brain. Well, guess what? Miami's the perfect place for you because that's what they do there. They do it almost better than anyone. They throw bags out like candy, guys. So it would not shock me. It would not shock me. I've said that for a while now. I think it's Texas, Miami. I think Tennessee's faded here, and you have to watch out for Miami. Now, I will say this. If Miami throws a bag at them, but they end up having an 8-4 season and Texas goes on to do what I think they're capable of doing, I think they'll flip that commitment. But if Miami can do what they should do with that schedule and that talent, I think he'd probably end up at Miami if it is really all about NIL because they have money, guys, and they're willing to spend it, especially on a 5-star like Jamie French. But I do think it's Texas, Miami. I think it's a coin flip at this point. You have 25 days to change his mind if it is Miami right now for Texas, and vice versa for Miami. You have 25 days to change his mind if it's Texas for Miami. So it's going to be interesting there. We'll jump into your comments again real quick. Have you talked Fasusi at all? If not, do you think y'all do what it takes to close? My God, Sheldon, you are a mind reader because he was literally right up next. Have you talked Fasusi at all? No. What it takes to close? I don't know what it takes to close. I have no idea what's going to happen in this recruitment. I personally think he ends up at Oklahoma, which really hurts because if we're talking rankings right now, guys, I think one of these wide receivers would be one of what Texas wants, and I think Michael Fasusi would be a close two. If we had a wide receiver like if DeCorian Moore's already in this class, Michael Fasusi is number 1 on the board, and it's not even close. But it's going to start to worry you because if you miss out on Khalid Lockett, there's a real chance you miss out on Jamie French. So you would end up with no wide receivers out of the big 3, which would be a colossal disappointment. But right behind that's Michael Fasusi. Michael Fasusi has more upside than anyone we have in the class right now for Texas. Nick Brooks is on the hook, the big offensive lineman out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I don't think we end up with him, which sucks. It really does. I'm not talking about Nick Brooks. I'm saying Michael Fasusi. I do actually think we end up with Nick Brooks. But Michael Fasusi, I think, will end up at Oklahoma. I think Florida's kind of thrown in a weird wrench in all this because the lead recruiter for him at A&M, which he really liked, which got him interested in A&M, went to Florida, and he's taken multiple visits there now. I believe 1 official visit, 1 unofficial visit. So maybe he just says, screw it, I'm going there. That would be so interesting if he decided to do that. His is August 22nd, so that's coming up as well. I do think he ends up at Oklahoma. Do I think Texas will offer him a lot of NIL money? Yes. There was a report out DeCorian Moore was offered $1.3 million. I believe he's going to get close to that number, as he should, because this is the biggest offensive line prospect Texas has had on the board in a while. We didn't have a lot of the other guys on the board, like Ty Haywood up as high for whatever reason, or Lamont Rogers, who never really, I thought, was going to Texas, even though according to Texas insiders, there was a chance. I never saw that. That never made any sense to me. I always thought that was Missouri. Maybe NIL changes his mind at some point, but I do think Fasusi ends up at Oklahoma, which would really suck for Texas. I know it's close between us, OU, and UT. There just isn't a lot left besides Babalow, and I think he goes to Michigan. I 100% agree with that. The Michigan guys do a great job, and TJ's been saying that for a while. I agree with TJ as well. I think he ends up at Michigan. I think Fasusi does end up at Oklahoma, which is a hell of a pickup for you guys. You guys are doing a really good job on the offensive line recruiting trail. Texas isn't doing as well. And now this class, I will say for Texas, doesn't need to be as good as Oklahoma's, in my opinion, because we have more depth than you guys at the position. But I will say, next year's class, if you miss out on Fasusi and the other guys I mentioned, you got to nail it. It's got to be just as big as the 22 class was, because most of those guys will be gone by the beginning of next year. And they'll definitely be gone by the beginning or the end of next year. So it's going to be hard for Texas. They got to nail down offensive line recruiting next year. They have to. Like, next year is a pivotal offensive line class for Texas. They have to do it, especially if they miss out on Michael Fasusi. Next up, we will have and talk about the last recruiting guy that comes up pretty soon, Jonah Williams, August 24th. This one becomes even more important because I don't think we're going to land Nathan Tillman. Obviously, this guy's a better player right now than Nathan Tillman. This thing is he may never play college football. It's hard for me to believe a guy throws 94, 95 off the mound and decides, you know what, I'd rather go get my head beat in for a living playing football. When you can make, guys, if he turns into a good reliever, he's making $10 to $20 million a year playing baseball. Why would you play football doing that? You'd have to be a very good safety to make that type of money. And do I think he has the capability of being a very good safety? Absolutely I do. But why push yourself when you just push yourself in baseball, make more money, be safer, set your family up for future wealth better, because baseball players make more on average. They do. So I would go play baseball. It'd be nice if Texas does land him and convince him to play at least a year of college football. That'd be really nice because it would be special. He's that type of player. He's a upper 5-star talent. I think it's going to be Texas or Oregon. I do. I don't think A&M plays in here because Schlossnagle leaving and going to Texas. I don't think LSU plays into this. And USC, he took an official visit, but I have heard basically nothing from that. I think it's Texas or Oregon. We'll see what happens. Honestly, if we lose this one, Oregon, I wouldn't be that angry because I really don't see this guy playing college football. I don't. I think he'll end up playing college baseball and then going to the MLB. Hard to recruit without a Manning or a big QB. We're 0 for 5 for 5 stars right now, so I get that. Yeah, 100%. That plays into it a lot as well. I think if you guys have a really good good season, in my opinion, Sheldon, that would be if you guys have an 8-4 season with that schedule first in the SEC. I think that's something Brent Venables can pitch pretty hard, in my opinion. I think that's a good season. I really do. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, Texas. There's been rumors of why is Texas kind of struggling on the recruiting trail? And that's funny because they're ranked in the top 15. They'll end up at worst a top 10 class. But for what Texas is, you got a lot of NIL. They're not deploying it as much as other schools are, but you still have a lot of NIL. You had your best season in over a decade, and it's the University of Texas. That should be enough to drive up recruiting. And at one point, like 2 months ago, there was a real shot. Like everyone thought Texas could end up with the number one class. That's out the window. That's not going to happen. I think probably the fifth is the best we can do. But it's a weird era, man. It really is. Like, and more than ever, man, you got to be patient because signing day isn't until December. And I really believe with the amount of money I've heard about recruits, I think there's a chance you're going to see the most amount of flips you've ever seen. And I think you're going to see him, honestly, at the very end. You're going to see a lot of guys flip in the last month. I really believe that because coaches, if you're on a hot seat and you think a guy can make a difference, you're going to be like, I need money. I need money to help this guy. If you're really close to a national championship and you think this guy can make a difference, I need money. I need money to get this guy. The amount of money I think is going to be crazy at the end here. I think you're going to see a crap ton of flips. And honestly, I hope Texas doesn't play into that game because I really believe you need a middle ground. I love the way they've handled the transfer portal in particular. Basically, it's free agency. If you need 4 or 5 guys to fill particular holes, that's how that should be handled. Most of your stuff should be done through high school recruiting. And also if a guy Texas has done this, there's been a high 4-star, 5-star guy that's currently in college. The dad got on the phone, said, we want more money. And Steve Sarkisian and the staff basically hung up and cut off the ties to them and said, we're done. We don't play that game. They kind of did the same thing with Dominic Williams, where he made his last rounds of calls and said, I want this to come here. And Texas was like, we're not playing that game. And I 100% agree with that. No one is that important. You can mess up your locker room chemistry, and it shouldn't be about that. If you want to come to the University of Texas, that should be number one. Playing football at University of Texas should be right up there, 1A, 1B. The next thing, you're like, hey, I want to go to Texas because this, and this, and to play really good high college football. The next thing should be the NIL. It shouldn't be the first thing at all, honestly. So it's going to be very interesting. Very, very difficult to recruit right now, and so much opportunity to flip kids 100% degree. No BS. I think that's the smart move, though. Football has to be first. 100% it does, because if you get caught up in money, I'm going to tell you right now, one, that's going to be messy, because if something happens and it isn't delivered upon, that's going to cause a whole bunch of issues. Number two, it can, think about this. You have a guy in your locker room, good player, making $500,000. You recruit a kid out of high school that's never played it down and only cares about money. You pay him $1 million. He comes in, practices like shit, doesn't really care. The guy's going to look over, is like, you're paying $1 million for this. I'm working my ass off for $500,000. I want more money. I mean, there's so many different ways this can ruin the dynamic of a team that I disagree with. And I think Texas has done a very good job in this. Now, they are winning with the formula they are currently doing. If they start to lose, then I could see them becoming desperate. I don't see that happening, though. I think the culture is good. We have enough talent. And I think at some point, you're like Georgia gets discounts, just like Alabama did with Nick Saban. When you win national championships, you're pumping guys to the NFL. Kids are going to be like, $500,000 to play at Georgia, $650 to play somewhere else. I'll take the $150,000 less, get developed, win national championships, and get a higher draft pick, because that makes sense. If Texas can start to do that, not win national championships, but are constantly in the playoff, constantly turning out 6 to 10 guys in the NFL draft, guys will take less money to come here. And I think that's what Sark's banking on, honestly, because he trusts his development that much. Development and versatility are like two things he preaches more than anything, honestly, that I've heard out of his mouth. So I think that's the proper way to do it. I really do. So that is the recruiting update. Again, guys, go down, subscribe, share this out with your friends, family. I need more people in here. Guys, we were trending at one point. We were having 20 to 30 people in here. The last couple of weeks has really fallen off. I don't know what the hell happened, but please share this out with your friends, family, neighbors, anyone that talks football. Sheldon is an Oklahoma fan, and we have had great discussions on here when he's been on here. So please share this out. Again, go over. USC show is at 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight. You can find me on Twitter there at X, or Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Matthew MS97, sports 95% of the time. And we're here every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to do a post-game show after every game. We're also going to do a Steve Sarkisian breakdown every week, talking about his media availability and what he says, trying to read in between the lines, which I've done a pretty damn good job at, because we're going to get into camp news, and I've been right about a lot so far. So please subscribe, guys. Jump back into the comments here. Facts only, Texas guy, pay attention. Thank you, Sheldon. I appreciate that much. Yeah, you can come in here and bring your Oklahoma guys. They hate me because I made a video about Texas being more talented than Oklahoma. And by the way, Oklahoma had more talent than I thought they did. But that's a video on here and on the SEC channel if you want to go watch that, Sheldon. I got so much hate from Oklahoma, like 200 comments on a video with 2,000 views. And it was all Oklahoma fans crapping on me. It was funny, though. It really was. I've gone through the comments multiple times. I tried to debate with a couple of people. They didn't really want to debate. And then also I laughed at a lot of them because they were just funny, honestly. I like funny comments. Someone called me Howdy Doody. For all you younger people, you probably don't know that. Google it. I knew who it was because I've actually seen a Howdy Doody show once or twice, and I busted out laughing from that. It was hilarious. Let's jump back into what we are discussing, and that is camp updates. And my God, do we have a lot of them. So we're going to start out with what everyone wants to know, and that is wide receivers. So the Stars, no surprise here, by the way, Silas Bolden and Ryan Wingo. I tried to tell people when Silas Bolden and Matthew Golden got on campus, do not be surprised if they are just as good as Isaiah Bond. I said that for the longest time, and everyone would look at me crazy. And I'm not crazy. I watched Silas Bolden play at Oregon State with an average QB in DJU, and he put up fantastic numbers. I believe over 900 yards or over 800 yards receiving, multiple punt returns for touchdowns. The guy is a dynamic playmaker with the ball in his hands, great in space, good route runner, tough blocker. That's another thing that's come out. Silas Bolden has been the best blocker at wide receiver. And blocking is a lot like defense in basketball. It's about the willpower. If you have the willpower to block, that's half the battle. We saw that with A.D. Mitchell last year. He did not want to block, but that guy's so talented. Guess what? He doesn't have to block. Someone like Silas Bolden from day one had to block playing football because he's short. And right off the bat, people are going to be judgmental and say, this guy can't play because look how little he is. Well, guess what? I'll show you by blocking that I can play. And this guy's been fantastic so far. He's already returning punts as the first team when he started out 4-team. He's going to get a lot of playing time this year. I think I said he would end up fourth on reps at the wide receiver position. I believe I had Bond, Golden, Wingo, and then Bolden as my top four. I think Cook ends up fifth in reps. And then Ryan Wingo has just been a stud. That's what everyone said. And I'm not shocked by it. Usually when you hear a guy's name in spring and it continues to be leaked throughout the fall, the guy's really damn good. And I think he's going to play a pivotal role in this offense. Like I said, I think he's going to be third in snaps at the end of the year at the wide receiver position. I think he's going to take someone's spot. I don't think he starts right away. I think by Oklahoma, I think Bolden and Wingo might be the starters along with either Bond or Golden. Golden's been in the slot a lot. Not surprised by that. I think you're going to see, again, a lot of versatility, guys in different positions. So it's going to be interesting. Next up, I said he's going to be a breakout player after SEC Media Days, Jalen Gilbo. And what do you know? He is the starting nickelback so far through, a couple days of practice, almost a week of practice. Not surprised by it. I am kind of surprised by Jahdae Barron. He hasn't played outside cornerback. Now, I will say this. He hasn't with the media availability. That could be a secret because I said Jahdae Barron was going to play cornerback this year. I said he was going to play safety this year. I said he was going to play nickelback. I think you're going to see 2 to 3 guys rotate between nickelback, cornerback, and safety. I think Makuba could play nickelback because he did at Clemson. I think Jalen Gilbo will play predominantly nickelback, and I think you'll see Jahdae Barron play nickelback a little bit too. But I think those 3 guys will rotate a lot. I think Gilbo will play there probably 70-80% of the time. I think Barron will play on the outside 70-80% of the time, and I think Makuba will play safety 70-80% of the time. But you'll see them rotate a lot as well. Scotty Hazelton, who was formerly at, I believe, North Dakota State and Kansas State, I think he was the defensive coordinator at one point at Kansas State, is on staff now at Texas. He is predominantly coaching the nickelback position. And by the way, guys, he can coach in games now. Remember, the NCAA made that rule where if you're an on-field coach, you can coach. So I think that will help out the nickelback spot a lot. Not that it wasn't good. Jahdae Barron's been really good ever since he took that spot over. But it can get better, and Scotty Hazelton knows what he's doing. Anyone that came from Chris Kleiman knows what they're doing, and I think he'll provide a good portion of knowledge to those guys there, especially someone like Jalen Gilbo. Jalen Gilbo's in his 3rd year, guys, but he played a lot as a freshman, got hurt last year, barely played, if at all. And this is really a 2nd year playing, so it's going to be very interesting. I fully expect him to be a really good player. I could see him have a breakout year, end up in the NFL. That's how good I think this is. I believe he was the number 1 rated cornerback out of Texas in high school when he came out. So the guy has a load of talent, and I think he's going to do a fantastic job. Alfred Collins. We always do this, but I'm going to have to report it, don't I? Looks fantastic. Looks the part. Looks even bigger, stronger, faster than last time. That's the key with him. He always looks damn good in shorts and no pads. We'll see what he does in the big games. If he does take that next step, guys, there's a couple players, in my opinion, where if they take the next step, Texas will be in the national championship. If Alfred Collins takes a De'Vondre Sweat-like step, Texas can be in the national championship. If Quinn Ewers takes that next step, and by the way, he's been killing it in practice. I wasn't going to mention it, but he's been killing it as well, and I'm not shocked by that. I think he ends up in New York for the Heisman. But if he ends up taking that next step, I think Texas will be in the national championship. And the last thing, if Texas can have 40 sacks, I think they end up in the national championship. Those 3 things need to hit for Texas to be in the national championship. Those 3 things hit, I think Texas can beat anyone other than possibly Georgia. I know Ohio State fans are not going to take that lightly. They're going to be pissed at me because I said we'd be better with them if those 3 things hit. I don't trust Will Howard, and that is my main concern with them. So the top wide receivers at practice in no particular order, the 6 that we talked about last week: Cook, Wingo, Bolden, Bond, Golden, and DeAndre Moore. I like DeAndre Moore. I think he's a hard worker. I think that's how he's going to make his money if there is a next level for him, kind of like Jordan Whittington. But I think Matthew Golden ends up being your slot starting wide receiver. I do. I know early on it's been DeAndre Moore, but Matthew Golden, one thing that I've liked, what I've heard, is he's been reliable. And I love to hear that. That's what you need out of a slot guy. He's your chain mover. He's your reliable hands guy, getting him the ball in space as well. And like I said, reliable and catching, because that's very important in the slot. It's important everywhere, but also more so the slot. I really think I love Matthew Golden, so I think he will end up being the starting slot, but Moore could push him there. A guy that I wrote off and I've been wrong about, we'll see if I continue to be wrong about in the season, Juan Davis. He's a senior, but apparently he is just destroying it in camp. He's learned a lot. Jeff Banks has raved about him, and that's the thing too, guys. This is what I love about this coaching staff. When they talk about you in the positive light, they mean it. They're not just throwing your name out there to be like, oh my God, this guy's doing so well, to hype people up. And then when the season comes, you realize, oh, that's BS. Every time they've hyped someone up, they were right. And they've been hyping up Juan Davis. He's actually been taking the second team reps over Amari Niblack. It's been Gunnar Helm and Juan Davis. I don't think he ends up being second in snaps. I think Amari Niblack at the end of the season will do that. But it's crazy, man. I think we're going to end up running packages with 3 tight ends out there and using it, like actually throwing out of it, not just blocking and running. So Juan Davis, congrats, man. I was wrong about you. I think you're going to break in the lineup, and I think you'll have a pretty decent year. There was talk about him transferring, and then Texas convinced him. I'm like, I said on you, why did you convince him he's not going to play? I was wrong. He'll play. If Jeff Banks said he's doing good and he expects a lot from him, he will play 100%. In the Natty, it's a 12-team playoff, more games. That would be something I'm here for it, though. I want you all good. I just want us better. That's better for both teams. I don't disagree with that. I think it's fun when Texas and Oklahoma are running the sport, but in contention for running the sport. And no one true team really runs the sport, honestly. But other than Nick Saban at Alabama, which is probably never going to happen again. But I don't disagree with that, Sheldon. It is fun when we're both better. And RJ Young, I think he's a little bit cracked out for saying we'll be in the SEC championship game together, but it would be fun. That would be hilarious, honestly, in the first game or first season in the SEC. Next up, the 3 safeties that are rotating the most are Derek Williams, Michael Taff, and Andrew McCoop. Not shocked by that, but when we get to who ran first team and second team, because we will get to that Monday. So today, sorry, they practiced earlier. It's going to be a little shocking who took first team safety there. Jelani McDonald and Xavier Filsaime round out that group of 5, but the 3 that I said, the top 3 are Derek Williams, Michael Tapp, and McCool. That's no surprise there. And then a guy, I'm not shocked by this, Alex January at defensive tackle is looking very good. The freshman from Duncanville, teammates with Colin Simmons. He was a 3-star recruit. And I'm telling you this right now, guys. This guy was only a 3-star recruit because of who he lined up with on the defensive line. When you line up with Colin Simmons and you line up with the guy who I think has the talent to be a top 10 pick whenever he decides to come out in the NFL draft, and I'm saying this as a freshman as he's never stepped foot on the field, but I've seen the tape. I've seen what he looks like. I see his measurables. When you come out with an alien like that on your defensive line, he's a 5-star, and you look over, you're like, yeah, this guy's okay. That's why he got ranked a 3-star. If Colin Simmons isn't on that defensive line, he's a 4-star recruit. The tape showed it. His stats showed it, and he showed it in camp. He will play. I don't think he'll be a starter. I don't even know if he'll be a backup, but he will play. He'll probably play 5 to 8% of the snaps this year, which is pretty good for a freshman at a very deep defensive tackle room. I don't think has a load of upper echelon talent, but it's very deep. I think there's 4 to 5 guys there that will play in the NFL, like 5th, 6th round guys, but still NFL talent. I don't hate RJ like most, but yes, he is wild. I don't even hate RJ, but that was just a wild take. You can love Oklahoma, but you can have to be somewhat objective, and you can give me an opinion, Sheldon. I think Oklahoma is going to be 8-4 this year. If you disagree with that, throw it in there. Let's camp update still. So Amari Niblack looks great, but he's not running first or second team. I don't know what that means. I think Amari Niblack will be used less than people. Pro Football Focus has him as like the breakout star at tight end. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to have a very solid year. But there's also some people that's like, oh, he's not going to get many reps behind Gunnar Helm and those guys. First off, Sark loves 12 personnel. He's going to play 2 tight ends a lot. Do I think Amari Niblack is going to play a decent amount? Yes, I do. Do I think Juan Davis is going to play a decent amount? Yes, I do. I think you're going to see Davis and Niblack rotate a lot, and I think you're going to see Gunnar Helm as the staple when they do go with the 1 tight end set. I think he will definitely be your starter. And that's my opinion on that. But I do think, like, snap-wise, if we're having to break it down, I still think Nyblack ends up with the second most. It's just hard for me to believe a guy that's in Juan Davis in his fourth year is going to be the backup tight end. And if you're the backup at tight end in Texas, you're playing a lot of snaps. I just don't see that. Do I see third and playing 20% of the snaps? Yeah, I could see that. I could absolutely see that. But I just don't see him being the second string. Next up, Gavin Holmes looks great. Guys, people forget, I believe he was an all-conference player in the ACC. He was like a really good player, and then he came to Texas, and then he got his feet wet, and now he's transitioning into a new he's been in 3 different conferences, ACC, Big 12, SEC, but he's in the same scheme. I think you're going to see him take a jump for sure, and if he can be that type of player that he was in the ACC, Texas has a real bona fide number 2 cornerback. If he can't, I think you're going to see, like I said, Jahdae Barron get a lot of reps there. I think Javion Cole's going to get a lot of reps there. I think Kobe Black's going to get a lot of reps there. And then a guy in Warren Roberson, who I wasn't even thinking of, killing it apparently. So there's a chance you could see him there. I think there's going to be a steady rotation early. I think you're going to see all those guys play in Colorado State. I don't know who they run out there for Michigan. That's the important game right now. Obviously, breaking down the first half of the season, first quarter of the season. So it'll be interesting who they run out for Michigan. Colorado State, all these guys that I'm mentioning are going to play a decent amount of snaps. Actually, I think the backups may play more than the starters. So that's going to be interesting. Now, here we go. This is first team and second team's reps in practice taken today, Monday. First team. I'm not even going to mention quarterback. You know who that was. Running back, C.J. Baxter. Not a surprise. They love him. Wide receivers, DeAndre Moore, Jonte Cook, Isaiah Bond. Tight end, Gunnar Helm. O-line, exactly who you'd expect. Left tackle, Kelvin Banks. Left guard, I guess left guard, I did think there'd be a competition. There doesn't seem to be, which is good. Hayden Connor, left guard. Center, Jake Majors. Right guard, DJ Campbell. Right tackle, Cam Williams. First team defense, Trey Moore, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Barron Sorrell. And it kind of surprised me Ethan Burke's not in there. Anthony Hill, David Benda, Gavin Holmes, Manny Muhammad, Michael Taft, and here is the surprise. Jelani McDonald, who I mentioned not in the 3 safeties that were killing it in camp, was the first team safety today. First team safety. Now, this is my comment on this. Steve Sarkisian probably has, I'm trying to think off my head, 16 to 17 guys he likes on this defense. He's trying to see where they fit and where the pieces match and how they come together as a puzzle. He wants to get his 11 best players on the field for the best situation at the time. At some point, Jelani McDonald will be one of the best 11 players that needs to play at a certain time in a game. 100% he will be. Steve Sarkisian seeing how the pieces fit together. That is my opinion on this. That is what I'm seeing. I think you'll see Jelani McDonald play safety quite a bit in the start, in big spots. I do. But I think he's trying to work out different combinations with and different schemes and seeing how they fit together. That's what I believe the first couple weeks. The last week of practice is what I'm really interested in. If the last week of practice, Jelani McDonald's running first team, my God, he's made an improvement and someone lost their job. I don't know how you could replace Derek Williams, so I think he's going to have a fantastic season. But if Jelani McDonald's doing it the first couple weeks of the season, then I'm wrong, and he's made a hell of a jump. Second team, Jaden Blue, running back. Obviously, Arch was the quarterback. Bolden, Golden, and Wingo. And then here it is, the surprise that I talked about. Juan Davis was your tight end for the second group. Trevor Gooseby, left tackle. Neto Umuluzulu, left guard. Connor Robertson, center. Right guard, Cole Hudson. Andre Kojo at the right tackle position. Burke, edge. Lole and Sevilla, defensive tackles. Finkley instead of Colton Vossick, which kind of surprised me at the other edge position. Leona Lafau, middle linebacker with Blackwell there at linebacker as well. Nickelback was Jahdae Barron. And then cornerbacks were Warren Roberson and Kobe Black, actually. And then Derek Williams and Makuba were at your safety position. So very interesting there. Couple surprises. Really only Juan Davis and Jelani McDonald, but still surprises nonetheless. So those are your camp updates for now. I think 10-2 depends on Bama and how much they come out swinging. So possible. Okay, you're higher than me. I think 9-3 wouldn't shock me. 10-2 would. 10-2 would shock me just because new offensive line with Jackson Arnold breaking in the SEC. That's very hard to do. And I am very high on Bama. When we get to my full-on SEC predictions and where I think everyone will finish, which will come on in 2 weeks, I think Bama's got a shot. That's all I'm going to say. I thought Bama was in the SE spot, so they would be good by then. So high end 10-2, 10-2 floor, 8-4. I think we split the difference, go 9-3. Yeah, I could see that. 9-3 wouldn't surprise me. 10-2 would kind of surprise me. So most important SEC games of the year, guys. This is not based on. This is not based on, I guess, rivalries and stuff like that. I am basing this on SEC championship and college football playoff. That is what I'm basing this on. That is all I'm basing it on. I'm not basing it on anything else. If you come in here and say a certain game, it should be higher because of a rivalry, go ahead. That's not what I'm basing this on. If I do think it's kind of in that, like I said, if I thought this was the 12th most important game, but it's a rivalry, I might have pushed it up into the top 10, but I think there's only 2 when we get to the list. We will get to that in 1 second. And number 1, guys, I don't think there's really a debate here. It's Texas and Georgia. You have number 1 preseason versus number 2 preseason. Last time these teams met was in the 2019 Sugar Bowl. Texas took care of business 28-21. And what is this? Number 1 versus number 4 in the country, according to the coaches poll. I think it's the biggest conference game of the year. I really do. I'm trying to think what else could even push it. Ohio State and Oregon, obviously. I think those are number 1 and number 2 in the country conference game-wise. I think this game could determine whether or not Georgia plays in the SEC championship game. And I know people are going to be like, what? You don't have Georgia in the SEC championship game? My predictions might say Georgia doesn't make the SEC championship game. I haven't decided on that, but it's going to be very questionable because Georgia has a lot of games on here. We're going to get to this. They have what? In my top 10, the first 3 games involve Georgia. They have a very hard schedule, and I predicted them not to make the college football playoff last year. I bet I was the only one, guys. I'd love for you to find anyone else that didn't predict Georgia to not make the college football playoff. I didn't, and I think they'll make it this year, but I don't know about that SEC championship game. So I have Texas and Georgia number 1. Number 2, this tells you where I land on how I am on Alabama. I have Georgia at Alabama. These are 9 of the last 10 SEC champions. 9 of the last 10 SEC champions. That is crazy. Last regular season meeting was October 17, 2020, so it's been a minute. Alabama won that one in Tuscaloosa, 41-24. I think Georgia is going to be looking for some revenge here. But again, Georgia plays all their tough games, like really tough games on the road for the most part. It's a hell of a game, guys. This season is going to be so fun, and this is just a little taste of it right there with the first 2. Next up, I got Georgia again. I got Georgia versus Ole Miss. This is number 1, number 4 SEC preseason, number 1 versus number 6 in the coaches poll that just came out for the whole season. Last meeting was last year, 52-17. Georgia absolutely killed Ole Miss, annihilated them. Lane Kiffin has to win a big game. And this game has to be circled going into the season. Has to. I'm trying to think what Lane Kiffin's big win is. I guess it's last year versus Penn State in a bowl game. That's really it, guys. I can't think of anything else. LSU last year, maybe. But this is a truly big game. This could be the number 1 team in the country going into Oxford to play you. If you have national championship aspirations, you have to win this game, in my opinion. If you have college football playoff aspirations, which they should, with that talent and that roster and this coaching staff, they need to be competitive. You cannot lose this game 52-17 again. If you lose this game 52-17, I will be done taking Ole Miss serious as a program. You have enough talent to compete with Georgia. Let's see if you can do this X's and O's wise. I thought they had enough talent to beat Bama last year, especially when Bama was down trying to figure out who the quarterback was, and they couldn't do that. So Lane Kiffin needs to win this game or at least compete heavily. Like this game should be 34-31, came down to the last couple minutes of the game for me to take Ole Miss seriously. I have this as number 3. I think it's going to be a hell of a game. 2 contradicting styles. Georgia wants to slam it at you. Ole Miss wants to throw it over you. Number 4, I have Missouri at Alabama. Number 6 in the preseason SEC poll versus number 3. Bama is 5-2 all time. The last meeting came in 2020. It came in Columbia, Missouri. Alabama won this game 38-19. I think this is a really good season. Do I think Missouri is being overrated slightly? Yes, I do, but I still think they're a top 15 team legitimately this year. They're a really good football team with a lot of returning production. And I'm high on Bama. This is a hell of a game. I think it will determine a college football playoff spot potentially. That's why I have it in number 4. This one may be a little bit higher than I should have put it, honestly. I have number 5. I have Bama at LSU. Last time they played was last year. Alabama won 42-28 with Jalen Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner, getting hurt. I'm not as high on LSU as the SEC pundits are. At number 5, finishing in the SEC, I just don't see that happening. I think they're highly overrated. You lost a Heisman Trophy winner. You lost 2 first-round wide receivers. Your offensive line is spectacular. No doubt about that. I think I had them ranked number 1 or number 2 in the SEC in my offensive line rankings. So I think you'll have a really good year up front. But defense, I have no idea. First off, talent-wise, it's one of the worst talent groups they've had on defense in the last 10 to 15 years. Coaches are a lot better than they were last year, obviously with Bo Davis taking over at the defensive line as the defensive line coach and Blake Baker taking over as the defensive coordinator. But do I think they can make that much of a difference? They were in like the 120s last year in total defense. At best, you probably end up in the late 80s, early 90s. And I think your offense comes down to where it kind of evens out. I think LSU's a 9-3 team, but could they make the SEC championship game? Possibly, but they could definitely spoil Alabama's season and beat them and knock them out of contention. That's why I ranked that number 5. This is where you can start to debate. Honestly, I think after 4, actually, you start to debate. Number 6, I think this is a fun matchup. Tennessee at Georgia. Obviously, it happens pretty often, but it's still a really fun matchup. Tennessee, obviously at their highest, I think they were number 1 in this game, but 2022, they lost to Georgia 27-13, and Georgia has won 7 in a row versus Tennessee, including last year, 38-10. Can Nico Iamaleava or whatever the hell how you pronounce his last name, can he make a big difference here? Can he end this losing streak versus Georgia? Can this Tennessee team, I think there's this group in the middle of the SEC teams, where one of them, I think, will push for a playoff spot, and the teams I'm thinking of are Tennessee, Oklahoma, and LSU. One of them will break out, and I'll throw Missouri in that as well, where I only think one of them has the potential to make the playoff. Can Tennessee beat Georgia, be competitive, and push for a playoff spot? We'll see. They are ranked 7th in the SEC preseason, so we'll have to see there. And I forgot this team too. I think Texas A&M has a shot because of their schedule. I don't love the roster, but their schedule is very easy. If they beat Notre Dame week 1, they can compete for the college football playoff. And that brings me to number 7. We're bringing it back. I cannot wait for it. Texas at Texas A&M. Texas set 76-37 all time. Last game, obviously, in 2011, Texas won 27-25 on a walk-off Justin Tucker kickoff. What a game it was, and I cannot wait for this game, guys. And let me tell you, there's a real chance this is a play-in game for the SEC championship game if Texas A&M can beat Notre Dame, because their schedule's not that hard. It really isn't. Texas and Oklahoma both got off pretty lucky with their SEC schedules, and I think Texas A&M, hurts me to say, but has a shot to make the SEC championship game. And if they have a shot to make the SEC championship game, they have a shot to make the playoffs. So it's going to be very interesting there. That is my 7th game. Number 8, really fun matchup. I vividly remember Baker Mayfield's Oklahoma going to Knoxville to play this game and coming back and beating Tennessee, because I think Tennessee had a pretty big lead in that game. And that is my number 8 game. Tennessee at Oklahoma. It opens up Oklahoma's slate into the SEC. It's their welcome party in the SEC. They get Tennessee at home. And I think this just is a big game, again, of that middle group of teams, that 4 to 5 group or middle tier of the SEC, who can possibly make a push to the playoff. I think this is kind of an elimination game in that fact. If Tennessee goes in and beats Oklahoma, I think Tennessee could be propelled in that playoff picture. If Oklahoma can beat Tennessee, that will give them confidence going on the road next week in Auburn, possibly win that game. And then, hell, who knows? You play Texas, I believe, after that. So that could propel you into the college football playoff picture as well. So very, very interesting game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Beautiful, beautiful matchups, helmet-wise, tradition-wise, color-wise, uniform-wise, everything. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next up, I do have the Red River rivalry in here, Texas versus Oklahoma. I think Texas is a really good shot at entering this game undefeated. I don't think Oklahoma will. Could they? Absolutely, they could. I think it'd be a hell of a game if they do. I mean, there's a chance if both of these teams are undefeated. We're talking number 2 or number 3 in the country versus number 10 in the country. It could be the most meaningful Red River rivalry game in a while, and the first game in the SEC. I think it's a hell of a game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun with that SEC flavor and a 2:30 kickoff. Sign me up. I cannot wait, guys. I'm so tired of just talking about these games. I cannot wait until they kick off. Ole Miss at LSU is my number 10. Hell of a game last year. 55-49 down the last seconds. I remember back and forth. I thought LSU was going to win when Brian Thomas Jr. caught that touchdown with a couple minutes left. Then Ole Miss comes down the field, scores. I think LSU did have a chance at the end, but there wasn't enough time. If that game had an unlimited clock, that game would have gone back and forth. It would have been like 200-199. Hell of a game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year. I think you'll see way more defense this year, though. In particular, because Jaden Daniels won't be playing in those wide receivers, but also because I do expect LSU to be slightly better on defense. I also expect Ole Miss to be a lot better on defense because of the talent they brought in. So those are my top 10 most important games into the just SEC schedule. Let's see if you guys agree or disagree with that. Hypothetical for this year only. If you had to pick a win, do you want OU or A&M? A&M. We haven't played them in, 14, 15 years. They have talked a lot of stuff. They're sending death threats to our now baseball coach, their old baseball coach, A&M. Just this year, though. And there's been a hypothetical thrown around, Sheldon. If Texas could go 10-2, make the college football playoff, but you lose to OU and A&M, would you sign up for it? It's hard for me because OU and A&M fans have talked a lot of crap this offseason, and they usually do. And I've just heard it more because obviously with the channel and everything. I think I would take, honestly, the 10-2 losing to both of them because I want to make the college football playoff. I want to win a national championship. That comes first and foremost. Then beating rivals comes second. So if you're making me choose, the pursuit of a national championship comes first. Josh coming back to Norman makes it good also. No love lost there. He was pissed when he let go for Riley. Yes, I think that's going to be very interesting. I wonder if there's going to be a handshake there. And it's going to be interesting how they treat him. It is, because that guy's important to OU football. He really is, but we'll see how they treat him there in Norman. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, guys, thank you for being here. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This has been the 16th edition of Texas Longhorns here, live with your host, Matthew Miller. Again, if you're going to go on Amazon like you do, like most of us do, buying your water, buying your smartphone accessories, buying your camera lights for whatever you want to do, whatever you buy, use the link in the description. It saves Mark a little change, or helps Mark get a little change in his pocket. Does not change the buying experience, does not change the selling experience, changes absolutely nothing. So please use that. Also, tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern time, we have the USC show with Matt, Mark, and Tim. Please go over there, like their content, and subscribe as well. Thank you guys for showing up to the 16th edition. My voice is going out. We were going to hit on the coaches poll, but guess what, guys? There's always next week. We will hit on that coaches poll. But again, stay up to date. Subscribe here because Kalik Lockett, August 7th. DJ Sanders, August 8th. Nathan Tillman, August 10th. And the whole month of August here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football Texas show. We will talk about them. We will have breaking videos if they do commit to Texas, which I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping I have like 4 or 5 videos up by the end of the month, along with Michael Fasusi, Jonah Williams, and Jamie French. So please subscribe. Please like the content. Share it out with as many people as you can. Again, this has been the 16th edition. Hook 'em, guys, and thank you for being here.